Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. Let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a wild 20-part journey through a mind-blowing $250 million vehicle lineup. We're breaking down a recent viral experiment to figure out what actually drives the completely absurd, constantly shifting concept of value when it comes to cars. Honestly, it's going to be quite the ride.
So wrap your head around this scenario. Imagine handing over $100 million for a single car, only to be told, yeah, you actually aren't legally allowed to drive it. Crazy, right? But to understand how a car's price tag even reaches 9 figures, we have to totally rethink what a machine is actually supposed to do. Because as those zeros add up, the very definition of a car fundamentally transforms. To map this out, we're using a framework we call Maslow's hierarchy of cars. We'll look at baseline survival and automation, emotion and Veblen goods, defying the elements, prototyping the future, the diminishing return ceiling, and finally, artifacts and the final paradox. We're going from a $1 rust bucket all the way to an irreplaceable $100 million museum piece. All right, part 1, baseline survival and automation. We're starting at the absolute bottom of the hierarchy, where the harsh realities of physics meet basic, everyday utility. You know, everyone loves the idea of a $1 car, but that famous $1 ride, which by the way smelled heavily of smoke inside, actually cost 20 grand just to get the engine turning and the wheels spinning. You literally cannot buy the physical means to safely move a human body for just $1. That $20,000, that's the real entry point for mechanical survival. And that sets us up perfectly for step 2, the $100,000 mark. Here, a Tesla acts like a supercomputer on wheels. Sure, it has the space to fit the kids, but what you're really paying for is autonomous, hands-free freedom. At this stage, you're paying the machine to completely take over the cognitive burden of driving. You are literally buying back your time.
Moving right along to section 2, emotion and Veblen goods. Now, what happens next completely shatters the logical progression of comfort and tech we just talked about. Check this out. For double the price of that relaxing, self-driving Tesla, we hit the $200,000 Lamborghini. Notice the total reversal here. The Lambo has half the space, it's incredibly loud, extremely stiff, and it forces you to physically shift into 4th gear yourself. Value here totally detaches from utility. Instead, it pivots entirely into sensory emotion and ego. You're paying top dollar just to manipulate your senses and feel powerful. This is absolutely crucial. The Lamborghini's loud, totally impractical nature makes it a classic Veblen good. In economics, that's a luxury item where demand actually goes up as the price goes up. The sheer inefficiency of the car is literally the whole point. It acts as rolling proof to the world that you're wealthy enough that your primary vehicle doesn't actually need to be practical. You're making a statement, not just picking up groceries. Next up, section 3, defying the elements. Because once you've conquered road status, what else is there? You enter this wild $300,000 to $600,000 territory where you get to completely ignore the normal rules of physics. This perfectly captures the era of highly engineered novelty. First, you've got a $300,000 militarized tank that actually survived a bomb test, perfectly protecting a stash of Feastables chocolate left on the passenger seat. Amazing, right? Then a $500,000 boat car that drives straight off a ramp into the ocean, does donuts, and blasts a marine horn. And finally, a $600,000 flying car that climbs 8,000 feet into the sky. But here's the thing, the flying car feels oddly cheap compared to luxury hypercars. Why? Because it's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. It has to be this aerodynamic compromise to be both a heavy airplane and a clunky car. You aren't paying for a smooth ride here, you're paying for the sheer audacity of crossing elemental boundaries with a single steering wheel. Okay, section 4. Prototyping the future. Leaving those quirky boundary pushers behind, we step into the multi-million-dollar realm of aggressively granular, cutting-edge science. At this staggering $2 million price point, the rules change all over again. You're fundamentally paying what I like to call a prototype tax. This kind of money doesn't buy you fancy leather cup holders. No, it funds thousands of hours of failed lab experiments and the salaries of PhDs. Just look at this $2 million hydrogen marvel. Built purely to prove a scientific concept, it gets over 1,600 kilometers of range on a single tank and hits 355 kilometers per hour. And the most mind-blowing part? The only exhaust coming out of this machine is pure, drinkable water from its fuel cell. But because it's on the bleeding edge of science, it lacks basic safety seatbelts, all while containing highly pressurized hydrogen gas. Also, notice how they seamlessly integrated a Samsung Vlog ecosystem into it, using a Galaxy Z Flip 5 to multitask and an S23 Ultra to film. It just goes to show that today's multi-million-dollar physical engineering has to intimately integrate with your digital life to hold real modern value. All right, section 5, the diminishing returns ceiling. Because eventually those folding digital screens fade away as we hit the brutal realities of engineering physics at the absolute top of the market. Hitting this massive 8-figure, $10 million mark introduces us to the Koenigsegg Vader. This is the fastest mass-produced car on the planet. Honestly, it's so extreme and mechanically violent that insurance companies only allow the actual owner to drive the thing. To really grasp this tier of our hierarchy, you have to understand the concept of diminishing returns. Think of an amateur runner. Better shoes easily shave off a second, but an Olympic sprinter, they spend millions on biomechanics just to shave off tiny fractions of a second. Koenigsegg used wildly expensive aerospace carbon fiber to shave a massive 226 kilograms of dead weight compared to a Lamborghini. You are literally paying astronomical research costs to eliminate dead weight just so a twin-turbo V8 can push the vehicle with terrifying ease. You're paying millions for millimeters and milliseconds. But here is the wild catch. The paint on this Koenigsegg, it's actually mixed with crushed diamonds. Now you might be thinking, doesn't that just make it an oversized bedazzled toy? Well, while the diamonds obviously don't make the car go any faster, they act as the ultimate cherry on top. When millions of dollars of engineering are hidden inside the invisible physics of the chassis, that crushed diamond paint is the glittering, tactile, visual proof of that extreme mechanical obsession. It's the one part you can actually see with the naked eye. Let's move to our final section, artifacts and the final paradox. Because you simply cannot top a $10 million car with modern tech. You've hit the ceiling of physics. So to go higher, the rules change for the very last time as we cross over into pure history. Enter the $20 million McLaren F1. Jay Leno bought his back in 1998 for $800,000, which means its legendary status appreciates its value by roughly $1 million every single year. It's a true engineering marvel. It relies entirely on pure atmospheric pressure, meaning it's naturally aspirated to hit 387 kilometers per hour, and it only weighs 1.04 tons. This lightweight analog masterpiece makes the sluggish 1.8-ton weight of a modern car look like, as they joke in the video, Nolan's mom. Plus, it puts the driver dead center in a 3-seat layout for a perfect center of gravity, just like a Formula One car. Moving even higher into what we're calling the museum tier, everything becomes about provenance and appreciation. We see a $50 million Jaguar where the value isn't in the metal, it's in the aura of history, because it was owned by Steve McQueen. Then there's a priceless $30 million one-of-one Ferrari, custom built as a literal peace offering from the founder of Ferrari to the founder of Ford. Because they're so precious, these cars require full police escorts just to navigate the streets. And incredibly, when that peace-offering Ferrari was pushed a bit too hard during the showcase, it stalled and completely broke down right on camera. It's a pretty stark reminder of just how fragile history really is. And that brilliantly sets up the absolute pinnacle of this insane list. $100 million. And it's for a vehicle that doesn't even look like a sleek hypercar. Instead, it's an antique carriage that acts as the absolute genesis of an entire global industry. Reaching the final step of Maslow's hierarchy of cars with the very first Ferrari ever made, we're looking at a fragile, moving artifact. For a designated museum rep to carefully inch it down the road, an entire police squad had to close bridges, fill in potholes, and literally sweep away pebbles so the tires wouldn't get damaged. I mean, it completely fails the baseline utility test of our $1 car from the beginning. You aren't paying for speed or transportation anymore. You're acting as the guardian of a piece of human history. It's much like owning a Da Vinci painting. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we've traveled all the way from a $20,000 mechanical repair bill to an environment-altering artifact. And we're left with this fascinating final paradox. If a machine is so historically irreplaceable that you aren't legally allowed to drive it, and an entire police force has to alter the physical environment just to protect its tires from a stray pebble, at what point do you stop owning the machine and the machine starts owning you? Definitely something to chew on the next time you look at a car's price tag. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and keep learning.